Hi everyone, this is Suzanne in Texas, and I'm going to show you how I transform a baseball cap by adding a patch and ties to the back. So let's start off. You're going to actually make a patch using an applique design, and many of y'all have built-in appliques in your machines, or I'm sure you've got software, or there's vendors that have applique patch type things on the internet for real cheap, and probably can even find them for free. First thing I did, I've hooped in my 4x4 hoop a piece of tearaway, medium weight tearaway stabilizer. Then you're going to place a smaller piece of probably about, I'd say 3x4 or maybe 4x3, 4x5 piece of flannel on your stabilizer, and then cover that with a piece of whatever you want to be your background fabric. Now, I'm not using any kind of spray adhesive, actually nothing to tack this down. It gets to be too messy, and really with a project this small, I don't really see any point in going to that much trouble. It's pretty easy. You can kind of hold it in place as the applique stitches tack it down. Okay, and then on top of that, you're going to center a piece of about 3x3 flannel again, and then your top piece of fabric, which looks like mine's about 3x3.5, something like that. Okay, so in this example, my blue pattern fabric corresponds to this striped fabric on this Choose Joy design, and then the blue corresponds to the white. And what I'm going to do is, at this point, I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and do the embroidery. And then we'll go from there. Now, I'm going to let you do that on your own machine, and I'm not going to take the time to show you, but when you get that finished, you're going to take and unhoop your project and remove all the tearaway stabilizer from the back, mainly because you want only the fabric, the flannel, and the threads to be exposed. After that, go back and trim, I would say about a 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch around on the outer fabric, and on the inner fabric about 1/4 of an inch from the frame. Let me see if you can see that okay. Now I'm going to fray, because I like this little frayed, distressed look. And I have a couple of recommendations. Be sure you have some sort of solid, firm surface other than your cutting mat. And you want to use something that's sharp and pointed to help you do the fraying. I'm using a large safety pin. I've also used my stiletto, but I'm afraid that using that real often might actually dull the tip. And all you're going to do is just go around this whole thing, and I start with the inner frame and remove threads. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing there. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit closer. And I'm just taking the point and pulling off the threads. And that's through that blue fabric and the flannel underneath it. So I'm going through 2 layers. Oops, lost you, sorry. So I'm going through 2 layers, and then you'll be able to trim that up and make it look smoother, similar to this. Okay, and then you're going to do the same thing for the outer frame or the outer fabric, but I only fray in about halfway so that more of your design shows. And again, using your pointed object, you just take and pull the threads, and you go all the way around the whole perimeter of both fabrics. Let me show you up close with this one. Let me zoom this back out. Oops, wrong way. Okay, so on the outer fabric, I only go a little ways in so that some of the color will show. And then on the inner fabric, I went all the way up to that frame. All right, and once you've gotten that finished, you'll be ready to attach your patch to your cap. However, before you do that step, I suggest going ahead and adding the ties to the back. I just love the little bow. I think it adds so much character to the overall project. Here's what I do. I cut 2 pieces of fabric, each of them 4 inches by 17 inches. 4 by 17. Fold them in half, right sides together, doing this for both of them, and then sew along 2 of the open sides, the long side and one of the ends. Now I actually used my serger on this one, and instead of making it squared off at the end, I made a slant. And then at the other end, I don't know if you can see that. Let me lay it down here. But I tapered it in just a bit. So slanted end, close this edge, and tapered towards that end. I still have enough room that I can turn it without any problem though. Okay, so you're going to do that to both ties, and then you're going to turn them and press them and top stitch them. Let me see if you can see the top stitching on here. I think I did this in, yeah, this one's done in white. So I've turned it, pressed it, and then I top stitched all the way around. Once you're to that point, you're ready to add your ties to the back of your cap. Now this particular cap is from Walmart. I think it was around $4. And what you need to do is open up and remove the closure at the back. You're going to open up this seam, and let me tell you, there's not much to it. Just use your seam ripper, maybe even a small pair of scissors, because there was only one seam there that I had to open. And pull both closures, Velcro closures out, save them for another project. And all you're going to do is add your tie in here and resew. Okay, let's pretend that this was the end of the tie that you just finished, and you've turned it and you've top stitched it and pressed it and everything. Take that open end where you tapered and accordion pleat it some. Just kind of bunch it up so that you can stick it in where you just removed the other closure. And I used something to secure that in place. And I insert it probably about 3/4 to 7/8 of an inch. Then go over to your sewing machine and with just a straight stitch, go back and forth to secure that. You could even do a couple of rows. Someone in another group, I think, suggested that maybe even if you didn't like your stitching, put a button on top, add a little more decoration, maybe even a little bit of bling. Okay, so you'll do that for the other side, and that way you'll have your 2 ties attached and it's ready to make a bow. Then we're going to go ahead and add our patch. Now I have a different patch here. It was done, no fraying, and it was a simple applique, 2 frames, an outer one and an inner one, and I trimmed before I did the placement stitch and tack down stitch, trimmed, and then did the satin stitch. Same thing on both of these frames, the yellow frames. So here's what I do to attach my patch. I use E6000. It's a permanent glue that is washable, and I have used it. I have put things in the dryer that have had it on them. Anyway, it's very aromatic, so you want to use it in a well-ventilated area, and you want to try and keep it off your fingers. Some people have suggested using gloves. I've never done it. I just try to be very careful. I usually try to work with it over wax paper or something to protect my surface area. Anyway, you're going to apply a bead of glue around the perimeter of the outer perimeter of the patch. If you've got it frayed, like in the example with the S, be sure you don't get it right on the frayed areas, or that'll tack that down and it won't have that puffy look that you're going for. Okay, so you want a nice bead around the perimeter, kind of spread it around, maybe with the tip of the glue tube, and then on the center I just make some cross hatching and smear that around a little bit. You can use a toothpick, a popsicle stick, something like that. Try to keep it off your fingers. So you've got the glue on there. Take it to your hat and flatten your hat out as best as possible, and then place your patch. And I try to make it so that my patch fits close to, but does not go totally above the eyelets in the hat. Usually there's those little eyelets, and I usually try to leave a little bit of room between the bottom of the patch and the top of the brim. Okay, so you're going to have the glue on it. You're going to place it down really well and make sure you've got no wrinkles underneath. And you will have a little bit of time to move it around, but you can't go too far because you'll end up with glue everywhere. Okay, so you get it in place like that, where you want it, and then you're going to put something heavy on it to secure it and let it sit for 24 hours. I have also used those big stone round coasters and put down, first I'd protect it with some wax paper, put the coaster down, and then something heavy on top of the coaster. That gives it a little more surface area that's under pressure. So you leave it for 24 hours. When it's thoroughly dried, come back, check, and if you find some little areas that are loose, maybe a corner didn't get stuck good like you'd like, just go back with your glue, add a little bit to it, and then stick it down and add pressure and let it sit for a few hours, and it should be ready to go. Okay, at that point, you're ready to put your hat on, tie the back, and go show it off. Let me give you a couple of little other examples. This particular hat right here, I bought at some retail store and paid like $7, which wasn't bad at all, but it actually has a small design in the front. But I love the color so much, I knew I was going to cover it up with a patch, so I did not pass this by. I just loved it. This patch right here, I think I will put on this little hat that I found in the clearance section at Walmart for $2. I think that'll be a beautiful pop of color for this hat. And the ties on the back will even add more. And don't just do baseball caps. Think about visors. You can add a patch, modify it to fit this area here, and then same thing. You can remove the Velcro or whatever type closure it has and add ties for another example or another idea. Okay, I hope that helps. I hope you don't have too many questions. Again, I'm assuming you know how to do an applique and have those resources either already on your machine, or you have your favorite vendors that probably have applique patches. And happy creating, and I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you again soon, and bye from Texas.